Welcome to CBR. Mystique has one of the coolest superpowers in all of Marvel. But do you know how exactly her shapeshifting works? Today you will, because we are deep diving into the evolution of Mystique in both comics and movies. The past and true identity of Mystique is partially a mystery in Marvel Comics. The metamorph mutant often uses the alias Raven Darkholme, which is presumed but not confirmed to be her real name. However, she has also taken countless other identities thanks to her powers. Some other aliases Mystique uses for entire stories in Marvel Comics are Mallory Brickman, Clarice Kenner, and Tiffany Norton. Raven Darkholme does sound the coolest, right? Before we get into her abilities, let's analyze the origins and evolution of the character. We don't know for sure where Mystique was born, but there's a strong possibility that she comes from Austria. That's because her earliest memories and stories in the comics are set in that country. It's where she meets Irene Adler, the great love of her life. Mystique was born sometime at the end of the 19th century. As you can imagine, she's immortal, which we'll explain later in the video. Her mutant powers manifested when she was 12 years old, in a time and place where mutants were not common or respected. She was rejected by her own family and became independent. With her skin turning dark blue and her eyes yellow, she soon learned how to commit crimes in order to survive, because everyone rejected her. As a lonesome young adult, Mystique began working as a private investigator. She met Irene Adler, or Destiny, a blind mutant with the power to know the future. Destiny had written a cryptic prophecy and sought Mystique's help to decode the message. The two became friends and eventually lovers, but they haven't always been together. They have often been separated and reunited throughout their journeys. In one of these moments, they were apart. In 1921, Mystique met an amnesiac Wolverine. They shared a brief romance and got involved in crimes together in Kansas City. Since then, Wolverine fought Mystique many times, but they have also occasionally gotten intimate again. Another romance in Mystique's story is a brief encounter with Victor Creed, or Sabretooth. During the Cold War, she took the identity of a German spy and infiltrated Berlin, where she met Sabretooth. They had a child together, Graydon Creed, who Mystique abandoned when he reached puberty and turned out to not be a mutant. There were other relationships in her life, and even the suspicions that Mystique not only had more children, but even killed one of them. After Berlin, Mystique was reunited with Destiny in the United States and resumed their relationship. They adopted Anna Marie, who had run away from home and would later become X-Men's Rogue. Then, within the Days of Future Past arc, Mystique and Destiny reformed the terrorist group initially assembled by Magneto, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. They performed countless acts of terrorism against humans in the name of mutants. But when Valerie Cooper became the head of the Commission on Superhuman Activities, everything changed. She and Mystique came to an agreement in which all crimes committed by the members of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants would be pardoned if they agreed to work for the government. This is how Mystique became the leader of the Freedom Force, a government-sponsored team of mutant operatives whose first missions included arresting Magneto. While they were in the Freedom Force, Destiny was murdered by Legion. This had a huge impact on Mystique, who was never the same again. In a deep depression following Destiny's death in the Muir Island saga, Mystique began being hunted by the Shadow King, a villainous cosmic manifestation of the dark side of human consciousness. This led to her seeking help from Nick Fury and Charles Xavier, one of the many instances in which Mystique aligned herself with the heroes for her own advantage, or for the sake of her pro-mutant agenda. Once they had banished the Shadow King, the Freedom Force was officially over due to the death of many members and the dismantling of the government agency that oversaw them. But Mystique's story gets even darker. Her long life of criminal activities granted her many enemies, some of which she was not even aware of until they attacked her. One surprising enemy was Spiral, her former Freedom Force teammate. Spiral stalked Mystique until the chase drove Mystique crazy. She had a nervous breakdown and was taken by her old friend Wolverine to the X-Men, who helped her. It was around this time that Mystique and Sabretooth discovered their abandoned human son had become an anti-mutant activist. Graydon Creed would grow up to become such a problem for mutants that Mystique ended up killing him with a long-distance shot during a rally for his presidential candidacy. During this era, Mystique was arrested and forced into joining the X Factor, another government-sanctioned team that also involved Val Cooper. The assassination of her son, which was actually by her future self, brought a new wave of anti-mutant violence. She went into hiding and lived for a while, using different aliases and appearances. But when she discovered that Destiny was one of the founding members of an anti-mutant movement, her rage drove her to revive the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. She committed a series of crimes, including attempting to assassinate a senator and kidnapping and impersonating scientist Moira McTaggart, to access her research. She was eventually arrested, sent to jail, and escaped. Mystique brought down the X-Corps by nearly killing their leader, Banshee. She also built a mutant empire on the island of Madripoor, and she continued to have feuds with many other characters, including Norman Osborn and other supervillains. During all this time, Mystique had a love-hate relationship with Charles Xavier and the X-Men, sometimes helping and sometimes antagonizing them. Nobody knows where Mystique's loyalty lies. She once betrayed the X-Men to join the Marauders, a group of mercenaries who work for the villain Mr. Sinister, but she later betrayed Mr. Sinister and the Marauders and helped the X-Men when it suited her. The fact that Rogue went to live with Professor X is probably the main reason why Mystique is not an enemy of the X-Men, but she doesn't like what they stand for either. In parallel, she used to be an enemy to Magneto, but he still admired her and invited her to join his own version of the X-Men. From then on, she has maintained a complex relationship with both Professor X and Magneto. She has also died and been resurrected, which slightly changed her abilities. To fit this impressive life story, Mystique has a set of really impressive powers. She is essentially immortal. She can be killed, but she does not age because she has the power to regenerate her cells, which also gives her a strong healing factor. Of course, she is a metamorph or shapeshifter, and her metamorphic powers are so strong because she has control over the cells of her body. She can take the exact form of absolutely anybody, or camouflage completely in the room to the point of becoming invisible. Her shapeshifting extends to any part of her body, like her vocal cords, as she can also mimic others' voices, or any other sound she wants with perfection. Anything you can imagine Mystique's body can become it. She can create wings, claws, another arm, you name it. The only limit her power has is that she can't gain or lose too much mass for long, so she can't grow like the Hulk or shrink like Ant-Man for an entire battle, for example. Of course, she can only look and sound like others and can't imitate others' powers, but her powers have also shown improvement over the years. After being resurrected, her powers increased to include smell to the point of fooling Wolverine's senses, and the ability to liquefy herself. On top of all her mutant abilities, she's also a master hand-to-hand combatant, a highly intelligent strategist, and a cunning impersonator who can fool even the greatest geniuses. She's also an expert in firearms and knives and speaks at least 9 languages. Just as Mystique is impressive for her powers and commitment to her beliefs, she's also very mysterious and dangerous, often finding herself in complex situations. Now let's rewind a little and check out some of the strangest corners of her trajectory in Marvel Comics. For example, Mystique's debut was a cameo in a 1978 Miss Marvel comic. However, recent comics have retconned Marvel's Sherlock Holmes to be in fact Mystique in disguise, which fits her origin story as a private investigator. This means that her debut was earlier in 1976, when the first Sherlock Holmes story was published by Marvel. In the late 1800s, Mystique took the identity of the detective working on 221 B. Baker Street in London, and Destiny helped her solve cases. They were friends with Arthur Conan Doyle, Marvel's fictional version of the author who created Sherlock Holmes in real life. The writer's famous books were an account of the adventures of Mystique and Destiny. But Mystique's secrets go beyond identities. She also has a long list of secret lovers, but what's even more surprising, a secret baby. We talked about Rogue being Mystique's adoptive daughter, and Graydon Creed being her biological son, who her future self killed. But she is also the mother of Kurt Wagner, the Nightcrawler, who is now known as Creepy Crawler. During the time she lived in Germany with Destiny, she got involved with other people, including the demonic mutant Azazel. Then, she morphed into a man and used cells from the men she slept with to create sperm and make Destiny pregnant. However, they later abandoned Kurt because of the chaotic situation they were living in at the time. Just like she loves Rogue, but she's a complicated mother, she also becomes a complex mother figure to Kurt once they are finally reunited. By the way, Mystique has some secrets related to how protective she is of Rogue. For instance, she once took the identity of Fox to infiltrate the X-Men and keep an eye on Rogue. And she antagonized Carol Danvers because of one of Destiny's prophecies that linked her to Rogue. Destiny saw that Carol Danvers, who was Ms. Marvel and would become Captain Marvel, would be an enemy to Rogue in the future. This led to Mystique being aggressive towards Carol, and Mystique even used the Brotherhood to attack the superhero. It seems like Mystique's biggest secret is that she's a mama bear beneath all the toughness. Just like in Marvel Comics, Mystique is one of the most complex and fascinating mutants in the X-Men movies as well. Played by Rebecca Romijn in the original trilogy and Jennifer Lawrence in the prequel films, Mystique's personality and powers are pretty accurate to the source material in the prequels, but not so much in the original trilogy. Her arc in the X-Men franchise spans multiple timelines, depicting her transformation from a naive young mutant to a villain, and then to a redeemed hero. In the movies, her real name being Raven is canon. In the prequels, Raven's story begins in X-Men First Class, set in the 1960s. As a child, she runs away from home and breaks into the Xavier Mansion. She is discovered by a young Charles Xavier, who offers her a home and treats her like a sister. Growing up, Raven struggles with her shape-shifting abilities, often feeling the need to hide her true form. During her time at Xavier's newly opened school, she meets Eric Lanesher, or Magneto. She becomes interested in how Eric believes that mutants should embrace their mutations without fear. He encourages Raven to see her blue skin as a symbol of pride rather than something to keep hidden. This influence gradually leads Mystique away from Xavier's ideology and toward Magneto's vision of mutants as superior beings to humans. By the end of the film, she chooses to leave Xavier's school and join Magneto in his quest for power. Mystique is then at the heart of Days of Future Past, when mutants become nearly extinct due to decisions she makes in the 1970s. Raven starts assassinating those responsible for experimenting on mutants and kills the scientist behind the Sentinel program. Sentinels are artificially intelligent robots designed to hunt mutants. However, the assassination of Bolivar Trask, the inventor of the Sentinels, by Mystique in 1973 is what triggers the mutant extinction. To prevent this future, Wolverine's consciousness is sent back to his 1973 body to change history. He tries to stop Mystique from killing Trask. Despite their efforts, Mystique initially remains determined to carry out her mission. However, she ultimately chooses not to kill him, altering the timeline and preventing the rise of the Sentinels. Her decision in Days of Future Past leads to a new timeline, where mutants are no longer on the brink of extinction, although she still does not fully align with Xavier's ideals and remains independent. When Apocalypse, an ancient and powerful mutant, awakens and seeks to destroy the world, Mystique is drawn back into the fight. She reunites with Xavier and the X-Men, but refuses to see herself as a leader. Nevertheless, she plays a crucial role in inspiring the younger X-Men to rise against Apocalypse. Mystique helps convince Magneto to abandon Apocalypse's cause, and together, they defeat him. After the battle, she embraces her role as a leader and begins training a new generation of X-Men alongside Charles Xavier. Then, she tragically dies in Dark Phoenix. But her journey in the original X-Men movies doesn't quite align with that, because that is the revised timeline generated after the Days of Future Past event. In the first X-Men film, Mystique is introduced as one of Magneto's most trusted allies. She is a skilled shapeshifter and fighter, using her abilities for espionage and combat for Magneto. Mystique infiltrates different organizations to aid Magneto's plan to turn world leaders into mutants. She also plays a key role in disabling Cerebro, nearly killing Professor X. In the final battle, she faces off against Wolverine but is ultimately defeated. In X2, Mystique takes on a more prominent role in the fight against the anti-mutant government. She uses her shape-shifting abilities to rescue Magneto from his plastic prison, and is instrumental in leading the X-Men to William Stryker's base, where mutants are being experimented on. She fights alongside the X-Men against Stryker's forces, but remains loyal to Magneto. In the last stand, Mystique is captured by the government and subjected to the mutant cure, which strips her of her powers and reverts her to a human state. This dramatic turn leads Magneto to abandon her, believing she is no longer useful. Feeling betrayed, Mystique later reveals information to the authorities about Magneto's plans. Her role in the film is brief, but her loss of powers marks a major shift in the character's arc.
You saved me.
X-Men expected to be introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We can't wait to find out whether Mystique will reappear. As we have discussed in the video, she is a character who has lived many adventures and battles, including some we didn't have time to mention. Marvel Studios won't run out of stories to adapt featuring Mystique. So did you already know the story of Mystique? What stories from Marvel Comics featuring her do you wish the MCU would adapt? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, thanks for watching CBR.